Hello guys, welcome back to Manalas Arc. I hope that this video finds you well. So this topic for now, the topic for today is simultaneous equations. In fact, it is simultaneous linear equations because we are dealing with two equations here, but those two equations are all linear, which means there's no variable that has an exponent that is bigger than 1 in this case. So before I move on with that, I want to remind you that this video that I'm making, it's a part of a series of equations for grade 10 that I'm making. So when you see me posting this video, just know that this video, it falls in a playlist and there are 3 videos that came before this one. And for the previous video, we spoke about equations with fractions. So if you didn't watch that video, and you feel like you understand this topic, you can attempt these questions by yourself. And then if they are giving you any problems, then you can go to the previous video and watch the video about the equations with fractions. I hope it makes sense. Now, I don't want to dwell much on that. Let's move on to the items that are on the list for today. So now, what's happening here is that we have 2 questions. We have this one. Oops, let me choose my pen. We have this question and we have this question. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to start with the second question, and then after that, then I'll go to the first question. Hope that makes sense. So let's do that. So basically, this is a relaxed question. There's not much to it there. So you just need to understand the basics, and after you do that, it won't be a problem. So usually explaining the first question will take a lot of time, but explaining the second question will take lesser time. Why? Because on the first question, I have a lot of explaining to do. So here, the first thing that I want you to see is that we have 2 equations. We have this equation and we have this equation. So the biggest job for you here now is to identify your equations. So we have 3x plus 5y is equals to 8. That is the first equation. So we put dot 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 there. We identify that as equation 1. It's important for you to put those dashed lines and to identify that as equation 1. Then we move on to the next part here. The next part, we write the second equation, which is x minus 2y. That is equals to negative 1 dot 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 dot. That is equation 2. Now someone would ask, will it be okay if I take the first one and make it equation 2 and the second one I make it equation 1? Yes, you can label your equations anyhow. So that's how it is. The next step from here now is to take one of the equations and isolate one variable from everything else. Make sense? One of the equations and isolate one variable from the rest. So here, let me take this equation, equation 2. So equation 2, if I was to isolate x, you choose any variable, Bateman. If I was to isolate x from everything else, I would leave x on the left, and then here I have negative 1, and I would transpose 2 to the other side. So then it will become positive 2y. Is that fair? So now, after the variable is isolated from everything else, then you can say this is your equation 3. So you had 2 equations, and then you created the third equation. The third equation you always create it for yourself. You don't find it on the question. So this process now, whereby you isolated x from everything else, we call this process making x the subject of the formula. I hope that is fair. Then once you have this, you can move on to the next step now. The next step is that you sub your equations. You're going to say substitute equation 3 into, you're going to substitute equation 3 into one of the equations that you haven't used so far. So we used this. The one that we didn't use is this one. So it means we are going to substitute 3 into what? Into equation 1. Because we haven't talked about equation 1 so far. All set. Now, then the next step is that you write for me your equation 1. So your equation 1, that is 3x plus 5y, that is equals to 8 dot 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 equation 1. You have to tell me again that, remember, this is equation 1. After that now, what you will have to do is that you look at your x. Wherever where there is x, you're going to substitute this. So because in equation 3, you said your x value is the same thing as what's on the right. So you said x is equals to -1 plus 2y. It means now on this part, I'm going to substitute that bracket with -1 plus 2y. I want you to substitute them. Let me put this on silent. Yeah. So now let's do that. So I have 3 into, instead of placing x, I'm going to place what? This blue part. So we have -1 plus 2y, close bracket, plus 5y, it's equals to 8. So actually we substituted the x with what is equivalent to x according to equation 3. And then from here we solve. So here we have 3 times -1, that is -3. And then 3 times 2y, that is positive 6y. And then plus the 5y, that is equals to 8. All set. Let me create some space now. So here I've created that space. Unfortunately, I couldn't remove everything because I still need everything. So this is all that I was able to remove now. So let's move this here. Hope that's fine. Yes. So now on this part, I have to continue now solving for y. I have to continue solving for this equation. So here now, on this part, I have -3, 6y, and 5y. So these two are like terms. I add them together, I get 11y minus 3 is equals to 8. And then what do I get there? I have 11y is equals to 8. When I transpose 3 to the other side, I get positive 3. Therefore, 11y will be equals to 11. How do I solve for y? Divide both sides by 11. Therefore, my y is equals to 1. Make sense? So now I found my y value now. So since I found my y value, let me write it here. Y is equals to 11. And then I clear the space now to the next part. So since I found my y value now, the next part is going to be that I have to substitute my y value into my equation 3. So here we go. I'm going to say substitute my y into equation 3. Right? So now let's do that. What is my equation 3? My equation 3 is x is equals to -1 plus 2y dot dot dot. That is my equation 3. Always identify your equations. And then where I see y, I substitute my y value that I found on the previous step. So I'm going to say x is equals to -1 plus 2 into brackets. How much is y? 11. And then I simplify that. X is equals to -1 plus 22, which is how much? 21. You see that? That's where it ends. You have your y value, you have your x value, so everything has been solved. Hope it makes sense. Now let's move on to the next one. So here's the next one. The next one might seem a little bit tricky, but we'll follow the same steps and we will win too. Right. First step, we said you do what? Okay, let me create some space here, because working with a video like this, I realized that I actually need a lot of space. So let's do that. Let's move this up there. Up. Oh, sorry. She doesn't want to select now. Let's move you up there. Perfect. I need all the space, guys. So here, let's move on. The first step is to identify my equation 1. So 3x minus 2y, that is equals to 8, dot dot dot, that's my equation 1. And to maximize my space, I'll write my equation 2 on this side. So 4x plus 2y is equals to 6, dot dot dot, That is my equation 2, right? So now I need to take one of these equations and then make x the subject of the formula. It's up to you. You can make x the subject of the formula or make y the subject of the formula. In fact, you know what? Let's make y the subject of the formula here. And then if there's a way for you to avoid fractions, try to avoid fractions. But then if there's no way you can, then work with what you have. Deal with the fractions. They shouldn't be a problem. So I'm going to take this equation and create my equation 3. So this equation is 4x plus 2y is equals to 6. Now I'll move x to the other side, so which means I'll have 2y is equals to 6 minus 4x, right? I haven't isolated y from everything else yet because y still has 2 there. So y is not yet the subject of the formula. Therefore, it means I have to divide this side by 2. And if I divide this side by 2, I have to divide everything now by 2. All set? So which means now my equation 3 becomes 1. My equation 3, this cancels that. I'm left with y is equals to 6 over 2, that is 3, minus 4 over 2, that is 2x. Dot, 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 dot. This is my equation 3. Why? Because this variable has been isolated from everything else. It's now the subject of the formula, which is what I wanted. All set. So now, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this and put it here so that I can have more space right there. So that's my equation 3. Now, after I've had my equation 3, what is supposed to happen? I'm supposed to substitute now my equation 3 into any of the equations I haven't used. So I've used equation 2 to create equation 3. The equation I haven't used now, it's equation 1. So I'm going to say now, substitute equation 3 into the one I haven't used so far, which is equation 1. All set? So because I'm talking about equation 1, I have to mention equation 1 now. So I'm saying 3x minus 2y, that is equals to 8, dot, dot, dot. This is my equation 1. This is me mentioning equation 1 now. And then after that, I get to this point. Because I said y is equals to this part on equation 3, it means where I see y in this equation, I must substitute with that, right? So I have 3x now minus 2. Instead of writing y, I'll write 3 minus 2x as according to equation 3, right? And then from here now, I continue solving. So I have 3x minus negative 2 times 3, that is negative 6. And then negative 2 times negative 2x, that is positive 4x, and that is equals to 8. And then from here, I keep on solving this one and this one. They are like terms, so they add up to 7x minus 6 is equals to 8. And then I have 7x is equals to 8. When I transpose 6 to the other side, it adds up. So I have 7x now, it's equals to 14. How do I keep on solving for x? I divide by 7, I divide by 7, and then my x, this cancels that, my x will be equals to 2. All set. Now that I've found it, I move on to the next part. I don't even have to erase here. Let me divide this here. Now that I've found my x, I can say substitute my x value into, remember what we substitute into equation 3. All set. So now, because I mentioned equation 3, I have to indicate equation 3. So I'm going to say y is equals to 3 minus 2x. And this is my equation 3. Dot, 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 equation 3. And then from there, I'm going to say y is equals to 3 minus 2 into how much is my x? I just found my x here, right? So I'll substitute that value there. My x is 2. And therefore, my y is equals to 3 minus 4. Then my y is equals to negative 1. Easy as that. This is usually a question that is worth around 4 marks up until 7, worst case scenario. So I know you will win on this ones. Simultaneous equations are so easy. So please make sure you win. Now let's move on to the next questions that have your questions to practice with for simultaneous equations. So here they are. the simultaneous linear equations questions. Please try to attempt these 2 questions to see if you can win. And then if you can, then I will be happy. So this concludes our video. We've now reached the end. I hope you enjoyed this content. Please don't forget to like and share and subscribe. See you on the next one. Goodbye.